Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between two mighty competitors. On the left-hand side, we have the most venomous duck in existence, Poison Ducky, leading the forces of the High Elves up against Han of the Skaven folk. Should be a good fun game. Overall, I think this is a matchup which certainly favours the Skaven for the majority of the matchups that you do. But at the same time, Skaven are good against pretty much everyone. So I'll have to see what Poison Ducky has done to try and counter this tough matchup. And I am a massive fan. As we can see in the Vanguard, we have Illyrian Reavers dotted in with Illyrian Reaver Archers. These guys are disgustingly quick, can certainly get in there and do a number on the weapons teams. And at the same time, for the most part, the large creatures of Skaven don't have particularly great armor. So that though these guys may lack armor piercing, they can certainly drag down larger entities with just wave after wave of arrow pressure. So yeah, nice low Illyrian Reavers with archers there. In the back line, we have triple spearmen, so going incredibly cheap and cheerful in the front line. Just 3 units of spearmen to hold back the tide of Skaven filth, as the Eagle Claw bolt throws, triple in fact, rain death from afar. Very good at taking down enemy artillery pieces. Bolt throws in general tend to be rather accurate. Down here we have one of the coolest looking units in the entire game, the Rahagra's Pride, Regiment of Renowned War Lions, and these guys look badass. It's so cool. It looks like they are kind of disappearing at the moment, unfortunately, as I zoom in on them. But they do come in with the Mighty Roar, a really nice area of effect debuff, lowers leadership and speed, and anything in multiplayer which lowers speed tends to be very good. Escorting them in the front is some line chariots, and off the top of my head, I think these guys must be the best chariot in the entire game. Now, there are other chariots which form different roles in a battle, like chariots and so forth, but the line chariots are absolute tanks and could do horrendous damage to the enemy, especially when combined with Alariel the Radiant up in the skies. Come with Earthblood and Star of Avalon. Healing up this type of target is just what the High Elves absolutely adore, and that looks like it's going to be it for the build of the High Elves. A very experimental build, which may be able to counter the Skaven forces. Now, for the Skaven themselves, we have Clan Rats and Skaven Slaves mixed throughout the entire battle line, which is to be expected. They're cheap, just here to absorb damage, allow the rest of the build to pack a punch, and that's going to come in this central portion. Double Poisoned Wind Mortars, disgusting units, probably the best in the game, who do some really lovely long range damage. We also have a unit of Warplord Gazelles in the centre. I like this pick. High Elf characters for the overall kind of view tend to be squishy, so these guys are a good target for them. We have double Wolf Rats with poison in the back here, as well as a couple of units of Rat Ogres. It looks like one on either side to try and counter punch the enemy where possible, as well as 2 in the front line to pound down enemy cavalry on the approach. We have 1 unit of Warp Grinders to pin the enemy in place. These guys come with Seismic Snare as well as Warp Quake, which is 2 really good pinning abilities. And we have an Assassin leading the forces. And who's in charge, the head rat of them all? Of course, it is the mighty Lord Skrulk. Been a competitive pick for a long time, coming with the Liber Bubonicus as well as the Rod Corruption. You're basically bringing him for those items. They are so good. Bolt throws do sing into the air, and Poison Wind Mortars do feel the pain. Although no models have been defeated just yet, they've taken quite a bit of burst damage straight out of the gate, and a couple of those little rattles have now exploded in puffs of dust and filthy blood. Warplord Gazelles are unleashed and held back, trying to focus down the E-Claw bolt throws where possible, which is a much better target than Alariel. As you can see, Poison Ducky, a veteran player, it was swooping back and forth there to juke any shots, and now the Reavers have started to focus down the Rat Ogres. These guys only 30 armor, so really good pick by them. And these Poison Wind Mortars down to just 5 models. Looks like the triple bolt throws may do a particularly decent job here, although some of them have now started being hit by those Poison Wind Mortars themselves. Illyrian Reavers even moving up to focus down the Poison Wind where possible. Really good early pressure coming in from the High Elves. Not only that, we have some War Lines coming in. Oh no, I was just about to do a cinematic charge, but instead they're just getting a nice view of the enemy battle line, staring at them and chanting, and here we go, now they're charging in to glorious combat. Hopefully decide to ignore the Rat Ogres, which of course is a good idea, and instead charge down the line, running over rats left, right and centre. Those scythes on the edge of those wheels are going to be thick with blood, and they can even push through here and actually really finish off the Poison Wind Mortars. They don't want to get caught up on the Rat Ogres, although one of them has indeed been trapped, which is really bad news. But Illyrian Reavers are now streaming in, trying to break these units, who are already quite low morale after that initial shock damage. And it looks like good micro here by the High Elf player. Lion Chariots are going to finish off these mortars, stopping them from coming back. On the other flank, though, really good counter pressure coming in from the forces of the Skaven Wolf Rats as well as Rat Ogres, to beat back some Illyrian Reavers physically and literally. And these guys not having a good time whatsoever. Two of the Eagle bolt throws, though, are completely fine. One of them is down now to just 2 artillery pieces. But they've certainly paid the price for doing such work, the Skaven. The second mortars are offline as well. Although the first ones have come back. It looks like those chariots, they get dragged back into the muck, and they've been hit by a warp quake, which is very dangerous stuff. These guys are absolutely pivotal to this high elf build. They need to cycle charge and break up Skaven attacks. And it looks like Poison Ducky knows this. Star of Avalon coming down, healing up those chariots, and this is one of the reasons that the Lion Chariot is the best chariot in the game. Not only does it synergize really well with some high elf lords you can bring in the form of healing, but they're way more tanky than your average chariot, meaning if you do make a mistake and they get stuck in the enemy territory, they can survive a lot longer. Rat Ogres are now starting to push through. Of course, the Illyrian Reavers are simply going to kite back, and finally the Skaven player is getting really aggressive, which he certainly needs to do. He wanted to outshoot the bolt throws, but he should have realized early on that wasn't going to be possible. So use the Wolf Rats, pound into the back line, use the Rat Ogres as well to put on some good pressure. All of these Illyrian Reavers, of course, do enjoy this type of game. Rahaga's Pride have bounded into battle, feasting upon the souls of the Skaven slave spearmen, and those spears are basically just sticks in their hand, not going to do too much work whatsoever. And now the Rahaga's Pride can whip around here to try and hunt down the Warplock Giselles. These Illyrian Reavers need to get active as well to attempt the same feat. The Lion Chariots were forced off briefly. A ton of Skaven forces were in hot pursuit, including an assassin, but they do manage to come back here, which is really good news for the High Elves. Still a very close game despite some early advantages from the High Elf force. Wolf Rats have now been counter-punched by Illyrian Reavers, and you shouldn't be scared to charge your Reavers or units such as this into combat in mass, as they do break enemy troops. And down at the Wolf Rats go. The Rat Ogres are now streaming through the back line. A ton of the Skaven forces are kind of dotted all around the battlefield, and they're coming in drips and drabs rather than as a unified front, which is a big problem for them right now, as the swift High Elf build is now feasting upon the souls of all these poor little Skaven folk. This unit could simply break down the Poison Wind Mortars, then chase off this unit of Rat Ogres, which still has 8 models, so that'd be a good plan. Rahaga's Pride are being Kobe'd in on a Leroy Jenkins approach, just used to shut down the Warplock Giselles. There we go. I was going to say Warplock Engineers. There's quite a lot of them there. They are going to die because the Warp Grinders are nearby, as well as Lord Scrog, but it's a worthwhile sacrifice just to keep the Giselles flying that little bit slower and allow the bolt throws to continue to rain in while the High Elves desperately attempt to secure their back line, which is a bit of a struggle. The Rat Ogres are doing a good job. They've got on top of these Illyrian Reavers. Should be able to overwhelm the Spearmen, despite the fact it's not a great engagement for them because of the bonus versus large the Spearmen do possess. But the Illyrian Reaver archers are now just raining, pittering, pattering those arrows down on the Rat Ogres' heads, trying to slowly chip away at that health, and it's doing a good job. Rat Ogres don't have particularly great leadership either, so if they continue to take damage like this, they are going to struggle. But they do get into combat now with some of the Reavers, which is a little bit of a micro mishap from the High Elf force. They certainly want to pull away and kite where possible, but far easy to say from my point of view. If we have an overlook of the battlefield, there is fighting going on all over the place, an absolute micro nightmare. Illyrian Reavers, though, have slammed into the Wolf Rats, as well as these Clan Rats with spears, doing a good job there. And the Warplock Giselles are nearly out of ammunition, as the Reavers do free themselves from the central pocket. And in come the Chariots once more, breaking up the central power base of Skaven. Both Rat Ogres are running for the hills, as well as these Clan Rats. That should allow the Spearmen to rally where they can to their bolt throws, although the Skaven player doing a good job. It looks like he's definitely forced off 2 of them, and the third one as well may be gone. Yes, it is, but they of course can rally to the cause in the late game, as the Lion Chariots do start to pull over here. A nice summon of the Clan Rats, trying to test the micromanagement of the High Elf forces, if they can pin in these Illyrian Reavers, but they're not having any of it, simply going to drag themselves through, and get a lovely, fat, overcast Earthblood onto these Lion Chariots, who still have 3 models, which is very scary stuff. Lord Scrog is pretty much full health though. He does only have 30 armor, so the missile pressure from the Reavers would do fantastic work against him, but they're incredibly low on ammo, and now are flooding into the back line. They've managed to maneuver around the main force of Skaven, and shutting down these Warplock Giselles should be relatively easy now. A nice summon of Plague Monks has gone down, as they are going to be able to catch the Spearmen, and they will decimate them in battle, coming in with their rolls and spins. These Spearmen are already bloody, but trust me, it's not the blood of the rats, it is the blood of the elves which shall be spilt there. Up in the skies, Alariel has been hit by a couple of Rod of Corruptions, I believe, or the Bubonicus there, and they're not having a good day of it. She should be flying into here to try and get healed up. It looks like the second Star of Avalon has now been used, once again on the Reavers as well as the Chariots, and the Chariots, up to 137 kills, have now managed to surround the Assassin and starting to ramrod him away, with the Plague Monks now disappearing into the Sweet Night, or not the Plague Monks, I believe that was a Clan Rat summon. Plague Monks are now chasing Spearmen, and this is exactly what you do if you see a big scary summon like Plague Monks come in. you run away, because there's no need to engage them whatsoever. Wait for them to dissipate into the other world once more. Another Summoner Plague Monks does come down though, desperately trying to protect Lord Skroke, as his Rat Ogre bodyguards have been dealt the final death blow, and these Rat Ogres are going to get absolutely swarmed. Reavers desperately trying to find an escape. The Skaven desperate as well to claw their way back into the game, are indeed going to pin in the Reavers both sides with a sacrificial Rat Ogre. Beautiful play there by the Skaven player, but unfortunately his Rat Ogres are going to break, allowing an escape route for all these High Elf forces. Balance power though is firmly in favour of Skaven, but they do have some summons on the pitch, so it's probably a little bit more even than it does say there. Skaven doing a decent job in the back line, finishing up some Skaven slaves, as well as forcing off the Rat Ogres, who are really trying to pound down these guys to break their leadership. But in come the cavalry. Another Earthblood has gone down. Lion Chariots still with 2 models. That is a lot of punch. Reavers are being used in close quarters here, but Rat Ogres, as we said earlier on, are actually really squishy. And light cavalry in general can do a fantastic job against them if you get the charge. You cannot be charged by the Rat Ogres, but if you charge them, they are far weaker than they would be. Basically, you need to use them as shot cavalry if you are Skaven. Rat Ogres have been forced off at this point. More slaves are forcing their way back into the blob as the backline of the Skaven is slowly trying to consolidate itself once more into a fighting force. Lord Skroke and the Assassin paired together are going to be a real tricky customers. But the High Elves have managed to get the E-Claw bolt throws back working once more. Looks like one is already online. The second crew is starting to move towards the artillery piece as another Earthblood goes down, which is the traditional way to play High Elves. Come on, you've got to heal up your troops, otherwise are you really a elf player? Lion Chariots up to double chevron at this point. Nearly 150 kills are once again lurking, prowling here on the periphery of this main Skaven force, who is Leroy Jenkins it forwards, which is the best idea here at this point. They need to get in and shut down these bolt throws. There is going to be some really nasty crossfire as the second crew is now online. Bolt throw not realistically going to do too much damage here. They're trying to shoot single entities, which are rather hard to hit, particularly when covered with elf and meat shields here. But it's the pressure on it that forces the Skaven player forward, and now Alariel can certainly do some glorious cycle charging. They're desperately trying to stop these Warp Grinders from engaging in the main fight, which is a really good idea because they have those really nasty air effect abilities. So sacrificing some Alien Reavers into these guys to pin them and beat them into using those abilities early is really nice. So they are going to be catching the Lion Chariots as well as some Spearmen, which is still nice overall. It looks like a fat Assassin's Trophy as well as Rod of Corruption has gone down. Alario is weeping right now, desperately trying to fight off Lord Skroke. It is going to be a tough fight. This is life versus death. Real mixture of a Decay and Plague versus, you know, Blooming and all that kind of good summary stuff. I'm so excited for summer as well, so I'm definitely Team Alario at the moment. Lord Skroke is just, you know, getting a little out of his comfort zone there, being floored by Lion Chariots once more, and good cycle charging throughout the entire game, to be honest, from the High Elf forces all round. But in the distance, the Rat Ogres do rally, and they could feast upon the E-Claw bolt thrower crew here if they speed up their assault, but they are starting to waver as the balance power does go even once more. We need that Plague Monk summon now rather than slightly earlier on. Good play, though, by the Skaven player. Skaven slaves are being mopping at the last there of that Eagle Claw bolt for a crew, which is absolutely pivotal. You don't want those guys keeping up that balance of power. And the Rat Ogres come in and body slam the back here of the second one, which has still got 2 pieces operational technically, although it looks like the Rat Ogres are going to be forced to try to join the main fight and hunt down Alario, who's very near her healing cap at this point. She does charge into the Warp Grinders, which is a little bit risky because they may have their snares up, but perhaps the High Elves spotted them being used a little bit early on. I think they just went to use one once more, but then got shattered. That could have been crazy, as Alario would have been pinned in the ground, and Lord Skroke probably would have been able to finish her off, although the Lion Chariots are here, and the balance power is now in the High Elf force's favour, at least for the first time in this game, I believe. Lion Chariots going to bound in once more onto these Clan Rat Spears, who are not having a good day whatsoever. They didn't get here to all this way to this battlefield just to be slaughtered, but it looks like they actually did. And Alario is going to be flying back up into the skies once more. Assassin's Trophy has been popped on her, so probably no need to cycle charge, as it may be a little bit risky, but looks like she is going to do it. Stand your ground has been popped by Lord Skroke, and a summon is going down in the back line. They may be able to pin in the Pigeon Queen herself, and she's just bobbing and weaving just about. Some rats trying to keep her in place. If she gets up into the skies, though, it's going to be a real hard time for the Skaven to come back into this game, as the balance power is slowly seeping more and more out of their favour. But the Assassin's pretty healthy at this point, and Lord Skroke, although beat up, does of course come in with lovely abilities, although I think he's used them for the most part. Beaten up, bloodied units of High Elves now throwing their bodies on the line. Lion Chariots going in for one last Valhalla-style charge. Doing some good work here onto the Clan Rats. Of course, though, they are only a summon. He needs to focus down the characters where possible. And this last bolt thrower, is it going to get off one last deadly volley? It looks like most likely not. Instead, the crew is going to run, fleeing and shaming their ancestors. It's no wonder the dwarfs beat you in the War of Vengeance. Now the Lion Chariots have been hit by a fat roll of corruption. This is really key. It looks like Alarielle just managed to dodge it, which is absolutely massive. Yes, it's not so good against single entities, I don't believe. You'd rather use the Babonicus up against Alarielle, but it still does damage, and with this battle on a knife's edge, it would have been really quite lovely. Lion Chariots still have two models, are now engaged in hand-to-hand with Lord Skroke, and Alarielle comes swooping in. Now that her assassin friend, or his assassin's friend, has been pushed out by those chariots, Skroke is incredibly vulnerable at this point. Spearmen rally to their lady in an attempt to finish off the plague-ridden rat, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. He's getting incredibly low health at this point, just 600. Is going to mean he is wavering. Chariots are giving their life to pin in the assassin, who's decided to stand and fight this, which is probably the right idea, otherwise he's simply going to get pushed over and over again as he attempts to get Lord Skroke, who has popped stand your ground at this point. Alarielle has been hit by Assassin's Trophy and is going to have to flee with a meager 500 health, but an Earthblood is going to be healing her and all her Spearman allies, although I don't think the Lion Chariots were blessed with a heal this time. It looks like Lord Skroke is now going to be done for. That was an insane close game with a real wild build from the High Elves and a more traditional approach from the Skaven. Very well played to both of those players. That was definitely one of my favourite games I've cast in a little while. Massive shout out to Poison Ducky for sending this one in, as well as Han for putting on a fantastic game between these two champions. Now, Poison Ducky is taking a little bit of a break from YouTube, but I'm sure he will be back eventually. I am trying to pressure him at every single opportunity he puts a video up on my channel. So please do go over there, check out his YouTube channel as well. He does drop Total War Warhammer content, as well as other games as well. So go over there, yell quack on all his videos, try and get him back making some of those glorious videos, as he is a very good content creator all round. But anyway, before we do start breaking down the damage value and damage dealt stats, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to hit that big old thumbs up button. It really helps push the channel out even more, as well as subscribing, as we're getting dangerously close to 4,000 subscribers. We're probably going to do a random faction, random Lord King of the Hill to celebrate, I think, but that'll be sorted out a little bit later this week, hopefully, if we do reach that milestone. And now, guys, the links down below in the description actually work. They haven't been working for a long time. YouTube gets a little bit funny about you copy and pasting stuff over, but I've managed to find a shortcut so I can simply upload it. So if you want to support me on Patreon, you want to join my Discord to send me replays, get involved in tournaments, or any of that good stuff, there are links down below, and they do actually work. I know, a miracle, we're improving all the time. But anyway, for the force of Han, here the Lord Skroke the Mighty, 9,350 damage dealt, is pretty disgusting stuff. 2,699 damage value, very impressive use of him, keeping that rather squishy Lord alive the entire game, and nearly sitting at the end as well with some fat Rod of Corruptions. The Assassin ally as well, always very good. These guys are actually brilliant bodyguards, despite their name thinking they're more aggressive. They work really well in both roles. 1.3k damage value is certainly nothing to laugh at. Of course, the Skaven Slaves and Clan Rats are simply here to die and absorb damage, and they did that job rather well. The Warp Grinders not getting huge damage value or damage dealt. I mean, damage dealt was okay, but their main job obviously was pinning in troops like the Lions, stopping them from moving, and they're actually a really good counter to the Chariots as well. But unfortunately for him, due to good micro from Poison Ducky, they weren't able to get on their best targets the entire game. Warp Giselles, good value across the board by them, or at least the one unit here, I suppose. 8,000 damage dealt, 1,600 damage value is pretty impressive. And the Poison Mortars, despite the huge amount of pressure that was applied to them, one of them didn't quite pay for itself. 594 damage value isn't terrible though, considering they got basically forced off the battlefield straight away. But the second unit, 1,147 damage value, 7.5k damage dealt. Very impressive stuff there. Wolf Rats were used initially good on the right-hand side, and Han was really aggressive with that right flank, but what I think he needed to do all round was be aggressive just straight from the off. As soon as he realised there's 3 bolt throws on the field, you're not going to be able to trade them from range with the troops you have, so he should have been far more aggressive. But at the same time, it's understandable. You've invested a lot of money in these range troops, so maybe a slow push would have been the best way to do it with the aggressive right, rather than the aggressive right and then the delayed advancement of the main force. Because when he got into the back line of Poison Ducky, he caused huge problems despite the early losses he did take. And the Rat Ogres across the board, some of them struggled, some of them performed rather well, particularly this one, 1,100 damage value, over 6k damage dealt. Now, so for the forces of the mighty High Elves, Alara the Radiant, of course, did pretty good damage. Nice cycle charging at the end. It is sometimes feels a little bit risky chucking her in. She can be a little bit squishy, but at the same time, you know, she's on a big bird. It will peck your eyes out if you give it the opportunity, and if you've not fed it for a couple of weeks. Damage dealt, 4,800, which is pretty good. 1.2k damage value, but of course, her main value comes within those Earth Bloods that she did drop down on the Chariots and the Reavers. Spearmen simply were here to die, and they did that just well enough. And the Illyrian Reavers did some good pressure throughout. This unit in particular doing really fantastic work, 1.1k damage value. The others struggled a little bit more. As for the Lion Chariots here, I think 186 kills, 15,000 damage dealt, 1,339 damage value. It's very good work by them. They did gain a chevron as well throughout the battle. I still think I stand by what I said. I think they're the best chariots in the game. I'm trying to think on top of my head. Maybe there's some other ones. If you guys think there's some different chariots which are even better than these bad boys, let me know down below. I'm always happy to be wrong. Illyrian Reaver Archers did really good play throughout. You can see this unit suffered here, but the other one over 1k damage value, over 1k again, and again over 1,000. That's such good work from these relatively cheap skirmishers, and they're pretty nasty all round. Rahagra's Pride as well, unfortunately, did get sacrificed at one point to try and shut down the Giselles, but overall did a pretty cool job, and they look good. That's their main thing. The bolt throwers as well, just applying lovely long-range pressure, forcing the Skaven out of their comfort zone. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed. That was a really good fun one. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.